In the intricate mosaic of European royalty, where lineage and duty wove destinies as complex as the tapestries adorning palace walls, the life of Elizabeth Alexandra Louisa Alex von Hessen, und Irene, affectionately known as Ella, stands as a profound testament to compassion, resilience, and spiritual transformation. Born on November 1st, 1864, in the Hessian city of Darmstadt, Ella's journey traversed the opulent courts of Europe to the blood-soaked mine shafts of revolutionary Russia, culminating in her canonization as Saint Elizabeth the New Martyr. Her story is one of a woman who turned personal tragedy into a mission of mercy, whose ethereal beauty and unyielding faith illuminated a world descending into chaos, and whose legacy endures as a beacon of hope and redemption. Elizabeth, or Ella, entered the world in Darmstadt, a city where the charm of cobblestone streets and medieval castles coexisted with the clamor of burgeoning industry. Her birth into the House of Hesse and by Rhine placed her within a web of European royalty, her lineage enriched by her maternal grandmother, Queen Victoria, whose influence shaped the dynastic alliances of the continent. Ella's father, Grand Duke Ludwig IV, was a sober, military-minded ruler, while her mother, Princess Alice, daughter of Victoria, was a woman of intellectual vigor and humanitarian zeal. Alice's progressive ideals, her advocacy for women's education and hospital reform, profoundly shaped Ella's upbringing, instilling in her a sense of duty tempered by empathy. The Hessian court was disciplined yet nurturing, a balance that fostered Ella's early virtues. Princess Alice insisted her children learn humility, assigning tasks like sweeping floors and mending clothes to instill responsibility. Ella, with her delicate features and eyes that shifted from slate gray to lavender depending on the light, was a striking presence even as a child. Her beauty, described by courtiers as almost otherworldly, was matched by a quiet intensity. At 5, she accompanied her mother to Darmstadt's hospitals, where the acrid scent of carbolic acid mingled with the groans of the sick. In one poignant moment, Ella held the hand of a dying factory girl, her small fingers steady against the faltering pulse of life. This encounter, etched into her memory, awakened a lifelong compassion that would define her path. Darmstadt itself was a crucible of contrasts, its fairy tale castles juxtaposed against the smoke of factories, heralding the industrial age. Ella's childhood was spent exploring the city's gardens, where roses bloomed beside iron foundries, and absorbing the stories of Hessian folklore that blended chivalry with sacrifice. Her education was rigorous, encompassing languages, history, and music, but it was her mother's example, visiting the poor, nursing the sick, that left the deepest imprint. Ella's early years were a delicate balance of privilege and purpose, her soul shaped by both the splendor of her heritage and the stark realities of human suffering. Tragedy struck in 1878 when Ella was 14. A diphtheria epidemic swept through the Hessian palace, claiming her younger sister Marie and weeks later her mother Alice. Quarantined to prevent further spread, Ella returned to a home transformed by loss. The palace, once filled with Alice's laughter and intellectual debates, now echoed with the relentless ticking of a grandfather clock, a mournful reminder of absence. The deaths forged Ella's serenity, a quiet strength that emerged like a lantern-piercing fog. Grief did not break her, it refined her, deepening her empathy and resolve. At an age when most girls dreamed of balls and suitors, Ella confronted mortality, emerging with a maturity that belied her years. By her early teens, Ella's beauty and grace had made her a sought-after figure in Europe's royal marriage market. Her ethereal appearance, golden hair, luminous eyes, and a serene demeanor, drew comparisons to Renaissance Madonnas, prompting painters to vie for the chance to capture her likeness. Yet Ella was no passive prize. Her intellect and independence, honed by her mother's teachings, made her discerning in matters of the heart. Among her earliest suitors was her cousin, the future Kaiser Wilhelm II, whose brash confidence and militaristic ambitions clashed with Ella's introspective nature. At 16, she declined his proposal with a polite curtsy, sensing that true love required a deeper connection than dynastic convenience. Other suitors followed, princes from Baden, Hohenzollern, and lesser German houses, but Ella remained unmoved. Queen Victoria, ever the orchestrator of royal alliances, saw in Ella a potential bridge for British influence, suggesting matches that aligned with her diplomatic goals. Ella, however, prioritized her heart's quiet yearnings over political expediency.
Her refusals were not acts of rebellion, but of conviction, reflecting a desire for a marriage rooted in mutual purpose rather than mere obligation. In a Europe on the cusp of transformation, where industrialization, nationalism, and imperial rivalries reshaped old certainties, Ella's calm resolve set her apart, a young woman navigating the expectations of her rank with a clarity that foreshadowed her future greatness. In 1881, at a family gathering in Darmstadt, Ella met Grand Duke Sergei Alexandrovich of Russia, a man whose aquiline features and reserved demeanor masked a complex soul. Sergei, the fifth son of Tsar Alexander II, was a figure of contrasts, a devout Orthodox Christian with a monk-like piety, yet a man scarred by his father's assassination in 1881, which left him wary of the world. Their initial meeting was tentative, their conversation weaving theology with shy humor. Sergei's silences, heavy with unspoken grief, gave Ella pause, and she gently declined his first proposal in 1881, uncertain of their compatibility. By 1882, however, circumstances had shifted. Sergei's losses, his parents and a brother, mirrored Ella's own, creating a shared language of sorrow. When he proposed again in 1883, Ella accepted, not with the fervor of romantic passion, but with the solemnity of a sacred commitment. She saw in Sergei a partner with whom she could pursue a life of meaning, their union a blend of personal connection and shared mission. The engagement was announced with fanfare, though Queen Victoria expressed private misgivings about Russia's political volatility, warning Ella of the dangers lurking in the Romanov court. Their wedding, on June 18, 1884, in the Winter Palace of St. Petersburg. Petersburg was a spectacle of imperial grandeur. The chapel glowed with thousands of candles, their light reflecting off gold icons and the diamonds adorning Ella's gown. Cannons boomed across the Neva River, and the air thrummed with the chants of Orthodox priests. Ella, now Velikaya Knyaginya Yelizaveta Feodorovna, stepped into her role with grace, her Hessian simplicity blending with Russian opulence. She embraced her adopted homeland with fervor, studying the Slavonic liturgy, mastering the Russian language, and delving into the nation's folklore and history. Her 1891 conversion to Orthodoxy, a deeply personal decision, was a turning point, earning her the adoration of the Russian people, who dubbed her the White Lily of Russia for her purity and compassion. Ella's marriage brought her to Moscow, where Sergei served as Governor General from 1891. The city was a kaleidoscope of contrasts. Golden domed churches rose above squalid slums, and the Kremlin's splendor overlooked streets teeming with unrest. Sergei's tenure was marked by autocratic rigor, most notably his 1891 decree expelling 20,000 Jewish families from Moscow, a policy rooted in anti-Semitic currents of the time. Ella was horrified, her conscience recoiling at the suffering inflicted. In a rare act of defiance, she slipped a note under Sergei's door. "God will punish us terribly." The gesture, though private, revealed her moral courage, a willingness to challenge her husband's actions despite the constraints of her role. To counter Sergei's harsh policies, Ella immersed herself in acts of charity. She ventured into Moscow's slums, where coal dust blackened the air and children shivered in rags. There, she distributed bread, bandaged wounds, and listen to the stories of the destitute. Her beauty became a symbol of hope, inspiring mothers to name their daughters Yelizaveta in her honor. Ella's presence in these grim quarters was not a fleeting gesture, but a sustained commitment, her hands as adept at soothing a fevered brow as they were at holding a scepter. Her compassion earned her a following, transforming her into a figure of near-mythic reverence among Moscow's poor. Ella also played a pivotal role in her sister Alex's life, guiding her romance with Tsarevich Nicholas, the future Tsar Nicholas II. Recognizing the depth of their love, Ella tutored Alex in Russian language and Orthodox rituals, preparing her for life as a Russian empress. By 1894, Alex's marriage to Nicholas and her coronation as Empress Alexandra marked a triumph of love over political obstacles, a moment Ella celebrated with quiet pride. Yet, Queen Victoria's warnings about Russia's instability lingered, and Ella's faith in love's power to transcend politics would soon be tested by the gathering storm of revolution. The shadow of childlessness hung over Ella and Sergei's marriage, fueling court gossip about Sergei's private life, including rumors of unconventional preferences that strained their bond. Ella, ever discreet, bore the whispers with dignity, focusing on her public duties. In 1902, the couple adopted Sergei's orphaned nephew and niece, Dmitri and Maria, whose arrival brought both joy and tension.
The children, wary of their new guardians, cast a chill over family dinners, their presence a reminder of the personal sacrifices Ella made for duty. Sergei's resignation as Governor General in 1904 did little to quell the revolutionary fervor sweeping Russia. On February 17, 1905, a bomb detonated by Ivan Kalyaev, a socialist revolutionary, obliterated Sergei's carriage in Moscow's Senate Square. The explosion scattered his remains across snow-dusted rooftops, a brutal symbol of Russia's descent into chaos. Ella, alerted by the blast, rushed to the scene, her gown soaking in blood-slicked slush as she knelt to gather fragments of her husband. A finger bearing his wedding band, scraps of velvet, a shattered watch. Her composure was surgical, her hand steady as she kissed the knuckle and pocketed the ring, her face a mask of resolve. In an extraordinary act of grace, Ella visited Kalyaev in his cell, offering a silver cross and urging him to repent. "You have killed my husband, but I forgive you," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of her loss. Kalyaev, unmoved, refused her plea, and after his execution, Ella prayed for both his soul and Sergei's, her faith transcending vengeance. The assassination was a crucible, cracking open her heart not to despair but to a deeper calling. Grief became a catalyst, redirecting her life toward a mission of healing that would redefine her legacy. Determined to transform her sorrow into service, Ella sold her vast collection of jewels, tiaras encrusted with sapphires, necklaces dripping with pearls, and purchased a derelict estate on Moscow's outskirts. By 1909, she had transformed it into the Martha and Mary Convent of Mercy, a hybrid of monastery, hospital, and orphanage. The convent was a radical departure from the opulence of her past. Its whitewashed walls and simple wooden crosses, a stark contrast to the Kremlin's gilded halls. It served 300 meals daily, dispensed free medicine, and taught orphans to read and write, becoming a lifeline for Moscow's destitute. Ella, now a nun in all but name, designed the convent's operations with meticulous care. She stitched nurses' habits from her old gowns, ladled beet broth for hollow-cheeked children, and led prayers that rose above the city's factory smoke. Her Sisters of Mercy, trained under her guidance, became Moscow's unsung heroes, their gray veils a familiar sight in slums and hospitals. Ella's leadership was both practical and spiritual, blending administrative rigor with a mystic's devotion. She viewed the convent as a bridge between heaven and earth, a place where the broken could find solace and the hopeless could glimpse redemption. Yet even as she poured her soul into the convent, Ella's heart remained tethered to her family, particularly her sister Alex. By 1916, Alex, now Empress Alexandra, was ensnared by the mystic Grigory Rasputin, whose influence over the royal family, particularly in treating the hemophiliac Tsarevich Alexei, had become a national scandal. Alarmed, Ella traveled to Tsarskoe Selo, pleading with Alex to sever ties with Rasputin, warning of the political and spiritual peril he posed. Alex, desperate to save her son, rebuffed her sister's counsel, her faith in Rasputin unshaken. Their parting was silent, a rift born of love and fear that left Ella heavy with foreboding. Russia's slide toward revolution was accelerating, and the Romanov dynasty stood on the brink of collapse. The February 1917 revolution shattered the Romanov Empire, with Nicholas II's abdication and the rise of Bolshevik power under crimson banners. Ella, undeterred by the chaos, remained at her convent, tending to patients as Moscow descended into anarchy. Her calm defiance infuriated the new regime, which viewed her as a symbol of the old order. In April 1918, the Cheka, the Bolshevik secret police, arrested Ella along with several Romanov relatives, including her companion sister Barbara and the young princes in her care. They were herded onto trains rattling through Siberia's taiga, past villages that seemed sketched in charcoal against the snow. Throughout the grueling journey, Ella's serenity never wavered. Clutching a satchel of medicinal herbs, she hummed Orthodox hymns, their melodies a counterpoint to the train's clatter. When a colonel in their group suffered an infected wound, Ella bandaged it with strips torn from her hem, her hands steady despite the swaying carriage. Her presence was a balm, calming her fellow prisoners even as their fate grew increasingly grim. On July 17, 1918, in the remote town of Alapayevsk, the group was driven to an abandoned mine shaft 66 feet deep, surrounded by pine forests whispering ancient secrets. The execution was brutal. Guards wielding rifle butts shattered ribs and drove the prisoners toward the pit. Ella, flung third into the abyss, survived the fall, her spine snapping against the jagged walls. From the darkness, her voice rose, clear and unwavering. Pain is fleeting. God is forever. She sang the cherubic hymn, its ethereal notes piercing the mind's stifling air. Crawling to a wounded prince, she bound his leg with her wimple, her hands trembling but resolute. Grenades followed, their explosions shaking the earth, and a fire was lit to consume the evidence. Ella's song faded before dawn, swallowed by the silence of the taiga, her final act a testament to faith in the face of unimaginable horror. In October 1918, White Army soldiers, advancing through Alapayevsk, discovered the mine and retrieved Ella's body. Her face, though bruised, was serene as if caught in mid-prayer, her hands folded over a small icon. Placed in a zinc coffin, her remains journeyed across Siberia, through war-torn China, and finally to Jerusalem, where in 1921 she was entombed in the Church of Mary Magdalene beside Gethsemane. Olive branches framed her resting place, their whispers mingling with the ancient sorrows of the Holy Land. Ella's legacy endured beyond her martyrdom. In 1992, the Moscow Patriarchate canonized her as Saint Elizabeth the New Martyr, her crimson-framed icon, depicting her with a palm branch and cross, drawing pilgrims to churches worldwide. Her restored Martha and Mary Convent, crowned with a bronze statue, bears the inscription, "To Grand Duchess Elizabeth Feodorovna with repentance." The convent remains a living testament to her mission, serving Moscow's poor as it did a century ago. Debates about Ella's life persist. A 2010 thesis suggested she may have known of Rasputin's murder plot in 1916, choosing silence as a patriotic act to protect Russia from his influence. The claim, though unproven, fuels discussions about her role as saint or strategist, her silence a prism refracting both faith and pragmatism. History offers no definitive answers, her legacy a complex interplay of mercy and mystery. Ella's life, spanning palaces and pits, embodies transformation. She turned crowns into bandages, forgiveness into defiance, and a mineshaft into a cathedral for one fleeting night. Her hymns, still sung in Orthodox liturgies, and her convent, reborn, testify that even the darkest tales can illuminate. Her voice, soft, steady, threads through time, a lantern for a world that reveres her as Elizabeth the Beautiful, the Merciful, the Martyr. In an age of fracture, her story remains a testament to the enduring power of compassion, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, a single act of mercy can light the way.